parenting, strict parents. These are all things that we've thought about at one point in our life. So I thought, do you know what? I'm going to make a video on if we think these specific rules are strict parenting. I will say in this video we're going to do some accounts from people that were children of strict parents. I'm just doing quotations so that we can decide at the time if they're strict or not. So we'll go straight into the first video here.
I'm raising 3 teenagers and they think that we are the most strict. So I wanted to put this out there and I want you to tell me, are we strict or not? Okay, the first one that they think that we're the most strict on is we make them charge their phones downstairs.
Charging the phone downstairs, I do feel like depending on what age, it does seem fair enough because I understand that sometimes my charger's right beside my bed, like right where my finger is there, it's down there. And I will just sit in bed whilst it's charged and scroll on it, even though I've got other things to do. So I understand maybe like, charge your phone downstairs, go do something else. Even if it's, I'm not saying like chores and stuff like that, but like even if it is chores, just so that maybe there's a bit of a time in the day that they're not always on their phone. Makes sense, to be fair. So I'm kind of agreeing on this one. I will say it does depend on what age they are, because I think if they're like 16 upwards, maybe just let them charge it in their room, because at that point I think children are a bit more independent.
That goes along with the second one. We don't have TVs, screens, computers, phones, none of that goes in their bedroom. So everything gets charged downstairs, and then they use devices in the family areas. So
this is an interesting one. I think with this one, I had a TV in my room when I was younger, and my brother had a TV in his room. We were together for a while, but then we got separated rooms. I liked having that like independent time watching the TV, that I didn't have to feel like I'd need to go and ask my mum or my dad, being like, oh, can I watch this? Or can I do this? Can I do that? So I think having a TV in the room, maybe you should let them have one. Maybe have like screen time limits on it. But I feel like always forcing your child to do things in like a family area doesn't always promote the best relationship with the family. I know that sounds very counterproductive, but it feels like a child will maybe start to like despise hanging out with yous. And that's my opinion. I could be wrong. Obviously, I don't have children. I'm old enough to have children. I'm just not having children now.
The third way that we are the most strict, we are a 1 blanket per person household. Meaning, if your girlfriend is hanging out with us and you guys want to snuggle up, that's great. 1 blanket each. No sharing blankets on our couch, which we got married young, we know.
That's an interesting one. I actually don't have any opinion in this. I've got a feeling that'll be more of like when I'm an adult. When I'm a parent, I'll decide then, because I think again it just depends on what age you are.
Technically this is number 4, the 4th way that we are the most strict parents. They still have screen time limits on their phone, so they can't just scroll mindlessly. They have I think it's an hour screen time limit, but we are the most strict for that.
So yeah, the hour screen time limit I do kind of agree on. Maybe not an hour, maybe a bit longer, because there's like loads of studies that show like it does really affect people, like not just like children, like it affects like adults and everything like that, that you should restrict your screen time. I'm a bit of a hypocrite. I don't. I tried to for a while and I just couldn't. Essentially it is an addiction, and I think some people don't admit that it's an addiction. Like I'm trying to get better at my screen time, but I think if I started off young it'd have been better. However, we had like a PlayStation 2 when I was younger, and we were only allowed to play for like an hour a day, like me and my brother, so between us both we were only allowed to play for an hour a day. So technically I had like the same rules, but we were allowed to watch TV as much as we wanted, but obviously we only had one TV, so that would just depend on if my parents were watching it or not, so there was like stuff like that. But that has helped me in the future. Like when I'm playing games, unless I'm really into a game, I normally do turn it off after an hour. Like, even if I'm really enjoying it, it was fun, but then just, like, out of, like, being like, oh, I've played for an hour, right, I've turned it off, which is useful, so I'm not getting, like, addicted to the game. I will say there are some games that I will just sit and play, but most of the time I will turn it off for an hour, and I'm actually quite happy that my mum and dad restricted me to an hour, because it has helped me now. Like, I know it's ironic with my phone, but, like, when I'm playing games, I normally get, like, lost in it and, like, forget the time and stuff like that, but because I have this hour limit I've set, like, naturally, like my parents have set in my head, even though I'm 22, I still do it. So it has worked out good for me.
That we are the most strict is we make them tell us their plans before they make them. I don't think that we're that strict. I think that a lot of our friends are stricter, but I'd love to know your thoughts. please weigh in the comments. And I had stricter parents. My mom is here on social media with me. She knows she was strict. She was way stricter than I am.
So I feel like it depends again on what age they are if they're making plans. Like, I understand, like, speaking to your parents. Like, I still speak to my mum about, like, things I'm doing. I'm like, oh, well, I'm allowed to do this. And she goes, oh, that's quite cool. Like, I still speak to them about it. But I don't, like, ask them first, obviously. And I don't think I ever did. My parents weren't strict at all. Like, I got, like, not got away with a lot, but, like, I got to do a lot. And, like, I felt like I just, at the age I was, I just couldn't be bothered being, like, bad to, like, get the wrath of, like, my parents shouting at me. So I just kind of, like, did what they asked, but I didn't feel like I was in a strict household at all. I think her saying my parents were stricter, so that means we're not strict, isn't a correct sentence, because just that's like the full thing of, like, oh, I did this but so and so did something worse. That's not how that works. So I do think that maybe she needs to look at that one a bit more. I don't think she's that strict. I feel like just depending on what age they are, I think that does change a lot with strictness.
I'm with 3 boys here, and sometimes they think we're way too strict. So I really want to know what you think based on these 3 rules that we have in our house, and you tell me if we are too strict. Rule number 1, we don't allow phones in bedrooms after 8 p.m. In fact, we don't even have screens in their rooms altogether.
Same again, the no screens after 8 p.m. is a bit interesting. Like, I suppose, like, what is it, blue light you're not supposed to have? Because it can affect your sleep. That makes sense. And again, all this does just depend on what age they are. Like, I understand maybe getting them to read and stuff like that. I don't read that much. I wish I read more. I just struggle to, like, read books for some reason. Because I don't know, my brain just gets bored. But I think that's the full thing with, like, endorphin rushes and stuff like that from going through TikTok all the time.
Rule number 2, no social media in high school. You can connect with true friends over text or call.
So this is a weird one, right? So obviously I had Snapchat and Facebook and Twitter in secondary school, and I think Instagram, I think I had them all whilst I was in secondary school. Instagram, I think, was my last one I got. I wasn't bullied with any of the like social medias, and I didn't really, like, obviously I didn't talk on it that much either. I'm just not a big, like, post on stuff like that, which I know is a bit ironic with making YouTube videos, but I just don't really post and stuff like that. So yeah, I understand, like, the not wanting to happen, but I don't think there's many people, like, that was affected by social media too much at the age I was, but that could also just be because it was kind of like the start of the specific social medias. I'm not saying it didn't happen, I didn't know about it, because that's always a chance. I don't know, it's a hard one, because I feel like not having that would, like, get you judged quite a lot, which I know is ironic. Like, you're saying, oh, you need to have this, that, but I feel like it maybe could affect, like, a child's school, like, because people are like, I don't want to hang about them because this and this, and I know people are like, oh, that's silly. Like, kids are like that. Like, you can't blame them for, like, being like that. That's just how they are until they get a bit older and realise how silly it was or anything like that. So this one is someone that was had strict parents. They've actually went no contact with their parents, and I think you understand why.
Number 1 was I was not allowed to read. I loved reading so much that it was all I wanted to do, and they ended up banning me from reading because they didn't like the books I was reading. I know some people are going to ask, what kind of books was I reading, and did it have anything to do with religion? No, it did not have anything to do with religion or anything like that, and I was reading normal kid stuff from our school library, stuff like Percy Jackson, Twilight, really any normal book that was in the library.
So I just googled there. Twilight is apparently appropriate to read at 14. And I think she was talking about, like, this is just throughout her full life, so obviously it's not nice. I feel like restricting someone from reading's a bit... I'm not going to say the word, but I'm sure you can all figure it out if it starts with an A, and you can get arrested for it. And I feel like I do feel really bad for her, because if you like reading, like, imagine being restricted something you loved, which in theory helps. Like, there's nothing really wrong with reading. Like, I can't imagine there's any time where you're like, oh, I don't read. Like, I can't imagine anything wrong with reading, which is a shame.
Another rule that we had was no singing or dancing. This was really big with Michael. Tara did not care as much, but singing and dancing in front of him was not allowed, especially Christmas music. He hated Christmas music, so any dancing, twirling, singing, humming, anything like that was not allowed in his presence.
So I think that's really unfair, because children like to express themselves. That's how they do it. Some people just, in general, even adults, obviously like to sing and dance. Like, it's not something that should be restricted, because I feel like that could affect people a lot more. Like, it could make them, like, go, well, I don't, I'm not allowed to do singing and dancing, right, so I'm not to do this, this, and this. Like, it could generally make them, like, not show emotions as well. I know it's, like, a weird jump, but it generally could, because they're like, oh, well, if I'm not allowed to do that, and that's what I do when I'm happy, right, so when I'm sad, I'll just not show that either. Like, I don't think it's healthy at all.
Another big thing was A's and B's. We were required to have A's and B's even though we were not allowed to do our homework at home. And I'm not just talking A's and B's like grade-wise, I'm saying A's and B's on every single homework assignment. They would go in the computer and check every single one of our homework assignments to make sure we had A's and B's on every assignment.
So that one, right, so I don't agree with that one, but I understand wanting your children to do well, but in this case, that does not seem like what they wanted if they weren't letting them do their homework at home. It sounds like these parents are very controlling in not a good way. Like, I know controlling's never good, but I think you just understand what I mean, but not a good way. And I actually do feel really sorry for this person, because that's their childhood ruined, do you know what I mean? Like, just because these people were like, nah, you must do what I tell you, even that's what parents are, but it's not that way. There is ways to do it where it's not like, you know what I mean, when it's not like that far where maybe you can get your kids taken off you. Sorry to end it in such like a somber note, but I hope you all enjoyed the video. Like, comment and subscribe.